Hey friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using Hello Bluebird's Carried Away, Flying High, and Word Buddies Woodland. So I have stamped those images out on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium Weight cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm starting with my bunny, and I decided to go with a light gray bunny. So I'm choosing N0, N1, and N3 for my color combo. I'm starting with that N3 and laying in some shadows. This little guy is facing toward the right, so his shadows are going to be a little bit heavier on the left-hand side and just a little bit on the right-hand side to keep that rounded look. Once I have the shadows done, I'm going to come in with the midtone, the N1, and begin to blend that out, just pulling that N3 into this lighter space, dragging that color with me so that I get a nice smooth blend. And then I'm going to come in with the N0 and I'm going to fill in most of the rest of him. I am going to do something a little different with his face. So I left some white area around his eyes and nose and mouth there. And what I ended up doing was making like a little heart shape on his face. So I'm going to pull that color down right above his nose, but keep kind of like a circular shape around his eyes. And then I'll use my colorless blender to just smooth out the transition from that N0 into the white space. And then once I'm done with that, I am going to go back over this guy with a second layer and just lay in that N3 once again right where I originally had it. If you have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I really encourage everyone to do at least a second layer on your images. Sometimes you can even do a third layer, but definitely a second layer is going to really help that saturation get just stronger and also make your blend really nice and smooth. It's a total game changer and absolutely worth the little extra effort. So then I'm moving on to the dog in the middle, and for the lighter parts of his body, I'm going to use E50, E51, and E53. And he is also tilted toward the right-hand side, or his body is, but his face is more centered. So that's why I'm doing his shadows more equally on his face, but putting them down the left side of his body, just to kind of create that highlight as it would be and have that sun be shining, you know, where it would be most reflective there. So once I have his first layer done, I'm going to come in with a second layer using that E53 first, and then I'm going to blend over that with the E51. And a lot of times when I do the third layer, which is now the E50, I don't go all the way over the original first layer, so there's 4 shades kind of in there once you get all done. For the darker parts of his body, I'm going to switch to E55, E57, and E59, and I'm going to do his ears and the patch around his eye and also his tail. And I'm starting with that E59 to lay in my shadows. I'm doing that on the undersides of his ears and his tail, and then again on the left side of his face to keep with the rest of the shading. And I'm doing it on the underside of the ears and tail because this scene is going to be taking place in the sky, so the light would be coming from above and the shadows would be underneath. So I blended out the E59 with the E57 and then filled everything in with the E55. And I am going to do a second layer of all of those shades as well. And this time again, I'm going to go with the darkest shades, a complete second layer. But then when I get to the E55, I'm not going to go all the way back over the original first layer of that E55. Just to leave a little bit of an extra highlight. Then for the kitty, I wanted it to be kind of like a golden tabby cat. So I'm using YR20, YR21, and YR23. The kitty is facing completely forward, so I am doing equal shadows on the left and the right with that YR23. And then I'm going to come in with the YR21 and begin to blend that out, just kind of pulling that color in toward the center of the body, but still leaving plenty of room for my highlight shade. Especially on the face, I really like to leave the center of the face nice and highlighted so you can really see all of those features. And then I'm going to come in with the YR20 and I'm going to fill in his face. And then I started to fill in his belly, but then realized it might be nice to leave a little white patch on his chest. So I am going to do that, and I'm also going to give him some little white socks on his hands and feet. And then I'm going to go in and color the tail. I added a little bit of a heavier shadow on the tail because it is behind his body and would be cast in shadow. And I left a little white tip on the end of the tail as well. And then I'm going to go in with my second layer, just beginning again with the YR23. You can see how quick and easy it is. It really doesn't take that much extra time, but it makes such a difference. So I'm just bringing that color towards that center, and then once again with that YR20, I'm not going to cover up all of the previous YR20. I'll leave a little bit of that original first layer, especially around the nose and close to the white spot on the chest. And then I'm going to help blend the transition with the colorless blender. So I let that kitty dry for maybe a minute or so, and then I'm going to come in and add some stripes to him using the YR27, and I'm just doing really skinny little triangles on his forehead and his arms. I'll also do them on the sides of his belly, just not going quite so deep, and then on his legs and tail. You do want to let the previous ink dry a little bit first, or this color will disperse into the rest of the coloring because Copics are meant to blend together. So letting that original layer dry a bit is going to let those stripes stand out and be, more prominent. And then I'll also color in the bird's beaks. Then I'm ready to give these critters some rosy cheeks and color in their noses for the bunny and the kitty, and also the insides of the ears for those two critters. So I'm using the R000, R11, and R20, and laying in the R20 first on the cheek, also coloring in the noses with that shade. Then I go around the cheek area with the R11. I also use the R11 inside the ears. And then on any lighter color critters, I also use the R000 on the cheeks. For this one, it was just the bunny, and also finished off the inside of his ear with that. And then I'm also going to do the little breasts of the birds with this combo. So I'm starting down at the bottom with the R20 and then blending up with the R11, and I'll add a little of that R000 in there. And then I'm also going to give them some rosy cheeks. I actually saw an eastern bluebird this morning when I was sitting out on my deck doing my journaling, and it totally inspired me to color these little birds like bluebirds. I am going to take a little creative license with the color of the rest of their bodies though. Normally bluebirds are more of like a cornflower blue. They're definitely a truer blue, but I needed to go with aqua tones to match the cardstock that I'll be using later on. So I chose some BGs. I went with BG10, BG11, and BG13. I put that BG13 down the backs of their bodies and their heads, and also at the base of their wings and tails. And then I'm blending that out with the BG11. And then I'll use the BG10 on their faces. And that color is light enough that I can color right over the little rosy cheek that I already did. And it's just going to blend, and it's not going to make it disappear. So I'm just going to fill that all in, and then I'm going to go over that with a second layer. But yeah, I was so excited to see that bluebird in my yard. I don't typically see bluebirds here. They live around here, but I just don't see them in my yard very often. So it was really, really special. And I'll do one of the little pom-poms on the party hats. Then I'm going to switch to a pink combo again. I'm going to pull in that R20, which is going to tie in the pinks that I've already used. But I want to darken up this combo by adding in the R22 and the R24. I'm laying in those shadows with the R24 on the left-hand side to match the dog, and also on the right-hand side on the left side of that second curve of the heart. And then I'm going to blend that out with the R22 and fill in the rest with the R20. And I will go over that with a second layer as well. I love that you get all these different shapes of balloons in this set. I just think it makes it even more fun than the regular traditional shaped balloon. It just gives you more variety. So once I finish up this heart-shaped balloon, I'm also going to do another of the party hats. This time I'm going to do the base of a party hat, and I'm going to shade that on the left and blend over toward the right. And then I'm going to switch over to some yellows so I can color in the star-shaped balloon. Just felt like the balloon would be a natural fit for yellows. So I went with Y02, Y06, and Y08. And it was a little bit tricky for me to kind of figure out where the shadows should go, since there are so many different highs and lows on the shape of a star. But I kind of just went for it, made sure that I definitely had a darker shadow down at the bottom, and then just picked a couple places where I would have some contrasting colors. So I think you can't really mess it up too much as long as you have some dark parts and some light parts. Now my Y02 was a little bit sticky, so it took a little bit of effort to get that to blend. It needs a refill, and I have ordered one, but I didn't have one, so just took a little bit of extra work to get that to smooth out. And I also used these shades to do another pom-pom on the party hats. For my green, I'm using YG11, YG13, and YG17, and just doing the base of the party hat with the blue pom-pom on it. I wanted to do kind of like a rainbow color palette for today, so I wanted to make sure I have all of those colors represented. And then I needed some orange, so I went with YR04, YR07, and YR09. And I did the last party hat base. And on that one, I only did the second layer with the darkest two shades because I didn't feel like I needed it on the third. And then I'm going to switch up to some purples, and I went with V12, V15, and V17. And I'm going to do the last balloon and also the little pom-pom for the remaining party hat. So for the balloon, I'm doing the shadows on the left-hand side to match the shading on the bunny with that V17. And then I blended that out with the V15 and added just a little tiny shadow on the right with the V15, and then used the V12 for the highlight. And again, I'm going to use a second layer on these, especially because purples can be pretty tricky to get to blend nicely. So that second layer is really going to help even things out. And then I'm going to do that little party hat like I mentioned. And then once I'm finished with all of the coloring, I'm going to take a colorless blender and just use that to try to add a little kind of highlight on each of those balloons, pushing that color back away. Then I'll grab a black Sakura Jelly Roll pen, and I'm going to go over the eyes of all of my critters, including the birds. So I'm just getting that started off to the side. Mine is kind of dried out a bit. And then once that is flowing, I'll just go over the eyes. I usually start on the right hand side and work my way to the left since I'm left-handed, and that way I don't drag my hands in the ink. And that just makes them bright and shiny, gives them a little bit of a raised surface, which just kind of brings them to life a bit. And then I'm going to take a white Sakura Jelly Roll pen, and I'll get that started off to the side as well. And I wanted to add some more highlights on my balloons, so just kind of following the shape and picking a few places here and there to add a little bit of that shine mark on there. And then I'm also going to add some polka dots to the base of each party hat. So I'm just going to work my way down just to add a little extra detail to this scene. And once that is completed, I'm going to trim all of these images out with their matching dies. For my background, I'm going to take the Partly Cloudy Slimline die and cut that out of several shades of Lawn Fawn cardstock. I'm using Mermaid for the sky, Speckled Eggshell for the clouds, and then Guava, Fake Tan, Sticky Note, Cilantro, Peacock, and Sugar Plum for the rainbow. So I have all of my little bits here, and I've also cut and scored a slimline card so that it will be the same size as this die. And I'm going to add some liquid glue to the back of the kind of outline frame that is going to hold all the little bits together. I really love this glue because it has that super fine nozzle that's going to allow me to get into all of those little areas on that tiny die cut, so I can make sure that everything is secured down really well. For the clouds, I'm just going to dot the glue here and there to make sure that all of the important pieces will be stuck down. And by the way, that slimline card is 8.5 inches tall by 3.5 inches wide. So I cut down an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock to 8.5 by 7 and then scored it on the 7-inch side at the 3.5 mark. So that's how I got that slimline card, and I'm just going to glue that frame onto my card base. And my card base is Speckled Eggshell, just like the frame and the clouds. And then I'm going to start fitting all these little bits together like a puzzle. So I will add my liquid glue to each spot and then set the die cut right down inside so that everything is adhered down really well. So I started in the bottom left corner and added a tiny bit of that mermaid cardstock to complete the sky below the rainbow. You could also fill it in with another shade of the rainbow if you wanted to. And then I started working my way up with the sugar plum and then the peacock, and then the cilantro is for the green. Then I have the sticky note cardstock for the yellow. The orange is the fake tan. And then for my red stripe or pink stripe, I'm going to use that guava cardstock. So that will complete my rainbow, but I think you could do this in so many different looks. I think in pastel shades would be really beautiful as well. So once that rainbow is completed, I'm going to switch back to working on my sky with that mermaid cardstock. And I'm just going to find the piece that fits in each section. Each one of them has a unique shape, so it's very easy to figure out which piece goes where. And I'm just going to build that up again from the bottom to the top, working my way kind of left to right. And this die really does go together like a dream. Everything fits so smoothly, and it really is like doing a puzzle. If you love doing puzzles, you're going to just have so much fun with this die. So I'm just kind of spreading out those last few blue pieces so I can see what I have and what goes where, and then just fitting them into place. And like I said, that fine nozzle of this glue just really fits down in all those little crevices, so everything is really well, adhered, and you won't have any little bits kind of sticking up that might catch on your envelope. So I'm fitting in my last piece of sky, and then I'm going to switch to my clouds. Now you could absolutely just leave the clouds as they are because it is the same colored cardstock that I'm using, and you would have that little bit of texture behind. But I wanted everything to be nice and flat for my images to adhere to. And I also wanted to stamp my sentiment on one of them. So I'm actually going to leave one of them out. It's the large cloud on the right-hand side. I'm going to leave that one out for now and just fit all the rest of the pieces in there. And then once I'm done with those, I'm going to take that cloud and pop it in my MISTI. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment on that using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I'm using a sentiment from the stamp set Party on the Farm, and it says, "It's your day." So I'm going to stamp that down twice to make sure that I get a nice dark bold impression so it's really visible against this really colorful background. And then I'm also going to stamp on the inside of my card. So I'm just going to open that up and put the spine right at the edge of the MISTI. And then I'm going to stamp in Merman ink. And I'm doing the happy birthday sentiment, which is also from Party on the Farm. And then the little fox holding the heart balloon right above that. I stamp that down 3 times. And then I'm going to go back to working on the outside of my card. And I'm going to take that final cloud with the sentiment on it and fit that into place. Then I'll bring in my images, and I want to lay them out first before I adhere them down so I can make sure that I get the spacing just right and I have each critter where I want it to go. So I'm just playing around with how I have those on the card, and then once I'm happy with where they are, I'm going to begin gluing them down, starting with the little dog down at the bottom. He's going to be overlapping that rainbow, so I'm going to just adhere him. Make sure that I have that string of the balloon going straight up and down, and then I'll work on the kitty with the heart-shaped balloon. And I'm going to add that one over on the right-hand side, just kind of staggering those little critters. And then I'll take that bunny with the purple balloon, and I'm going to add that to the top left near that sentiment. So again, just making sure that the string of the balloon is straight up and down, and then pressing that down into place. Then I'm also going to lay out those party hats and make sure that the colors that are represented in the hat are different than the color of that critter's balloon, just to spread that color around the scene a bit more and have little pops here and there. So I ended up going with the red and purple hat for the kitty, the orange and yellow hat for the dog, and the green and aqua hat for the bunny. And then I wanted to figure out the placement of my birds. I have 4 birds, and that is because I like to have odd numbers on my card, and I have 3 critters, so 3 plus 4 equals 7. So that's how I came up with that number. One of those birds, the one at the very top, is from the Carried Away stamp set. The other 3 birds are from Flying High, and the one that I'm adhering down at the bottom, the wings are just a little bit different. It has 4 scallops, and the one at the top has 3, so each of them has their own little unique look to them. So I'm just adding those little birds and staggering them here and there, tipping them in different directions to just add a little bit more scenery. And then I wanted to finish off this card with some sequins. So I chose some sparkling clear sequins in the 4 and 6 millimeter size. And I'm using my Studio Katia embellishment wand to pick those up and then just adhering those down with my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. And once I just staggered those down the card left to right and kind of switched up the number of them. So I have 2, then 3, then 3, then 2. And then once those are dried a bit, I'm going to fill in the centers of those sequins with some Stardust Stickles to add a bit of extra sparkle to this card. And I also decided to add a little bit to the balloons. I didn't want to get too carried away because it will make that white gel pen dissolve, so I just added it in a few little places where that wasn't. And then I also added a bit to the tops of the pom-poms on the party hats. And that is going to finish off my card for today. So I will lift that up so you can see all of the detail and how that stickles catches the light and adds that bit of sparkle. And then there is another peek at the inside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had so much fun creating it. If you did like it, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. All of the links to the products I use will be listed in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. You can click on either one to check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.